Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Monday, November 1st, the first of the month, about 5 minutes after market close, approximately 4:07 p.m. Eastern time here in Jacksonville, Florida. And in today's video, we're going to look at a couple of small to mid cap stocks for your focused list as the Russell 2000 or small cap stocks try to break out. We'll look at those charts here in just a bit. Before we do that, let's talk about what just happened. Small and mid caps lead. The Qs, the S&P, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average all just slightly green. You can see that in the performance there. The G5 up about 1.6%. The S&P up a little under 1/5%. The Qs up a little more than 1/3. Dow Jones up about 1/4%. Mid caps up a little over 2%, and the Russell 2000 up a little over 2.5%. So obvious to see some big time strength in mid and small caps there. Market state remains in an uptrend. There's no change there from Don's last video on Friday. There's also no changes to the trend gauge from Friday either. Everything is still intact from that standpoint. Before we do get to the charts, however, please allow me to talk about Revere for a quick second here. This is me in the middle. If you have any questions about any of the stocks I cover, anything I say, any specific level I mention on an index or a stock, send me an email. I'd be happy to answer your questions. If you're interested in what we do at Revere, what our strategy is, you can also email me and ask me about that, or you can email anybody here, Dan, Tim, Merrill, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com as well. So let's get into the charts. I mentioned the S&P was up just a little bit today, but you can see still continuing to eke out new highs here, at least on the SPY, getting up over that 460 level. The Qs also getting very, just a tiny little bit above that high from Friday there. So starting off the month relatively well, still above this 383 area. We are slightly extended here. We're about 3.5%, 4% from the 50 on the Qs and the S&P. So that's something to be conscious of. It is very common and likely that a pullback will happen eventually, and these will pull back to the 21 perhaps, or something of that nature. But for the time being, we're respecting the 8-day on the S&P and the Qs, but just keep in mind we are starting to get a little bit extended to some degree on the S&P, on the Qs. Now IWM, on the other hand, trying to get extended all in one day here. You can see it's now 4.5% from the 50 as well, but that's pretty much strictly because of today. Coming into today, it was closer to 1.5 or 2%. So IWM, or the Russell 2000, really getting close to a big breakout here. It's tried a few times. You can see 233, trying to do something here, get through this 234.53 level. That's the spot you want to watch on IWM. MDY continuing its strength. It had already broken out ahead of small caps. So mid caps really one of the leading areas right now. Similar candle as to what we just saw with IWM, continuing up above this 500 level, 507 to be exact, that it couldn't get through, following through up to 520 today. Additionally, extended we're about 3.5 to 4.5% from the 50 on all of the major indices, about 2.5 to 3.5% from the 21 on all the major indices as well. And then the Dow, the least extended of the bunch, I believe, about 1.5% from the 21 and about 2.5 from the 50. So the Dow, the laggard for the time being, not that that's a huge surprise, but mid caps and small caps really outperforming today. And that's something that's extremely common. Me and Don say this often, when banks and oils outperform, and that's exactly what happened today. We saw banks, this is KRE, regional banks, up over 3%, and oils, we'll just use XOP here, up about 3% as well. Really outperforming, driving a lot of the outperformance in growth stocks. We also saw, just as an example of the breadth in small caps today, IWO up 2.65%, that's the small cap growth, and IWN up 2.66%. So they were up almost identically. So there was strength in both value and growth in the small and mid cap world. So strength across the board really there. However, I want to mention these three specific names, and there's a specific reason for doing that. And I know really what we're looking at here is we want to identify those small to mid cap growth stocks, or just stocks in general that have broken out and are ahead of the index, right? They're ahead of the IWM starting to break out. It's a tailwind, a positive tailwind for them. So the first one we want to look at here is Matador. This is a name we've talked about a handful of times. You can see an incredibly strong move, a breakout, went and got about 20% above this 38 pivot, now coming back to the 21. These may need some time as this was a very, very strong and quick move. But Matador, one of the top names in the space, especially in regards to price performance. You can see the RS rating is a 99. It is a very volatile one, but back to the 21 here, bouncing today, getting back above the 8. Matador is one of those smaller names you can see, only about a $5 billion company. Another one is the top position in our current portfolio at Grotection, and that is AMBA. I know this is very, very extended, but this was one of the first to break out. It held its gap and has moved up incredibly nicely off the 8. If an opportunity were to present itself on this one, I think you need to keep a close eye on it. Another one that's a smaller company, only about a $7 billion company, and a lot of that market cap has come in the last 3 months, 2 months or so. It was $100 here, half the market cap it is now, about 2 or 3 months ago. So a really strong move for AMBA, one of the leaders in the entire market as a whole, but particularly in the smaller company space. And then lastly, Celsius, another one that we've talked about a few times on the podcast, but you can see this one got back above these 80, 83 highs here, and has been kind of all over the place under 100. Very weird, kind of wonky trading stock, but I'd keep your eye on it. It has a tendency to just kind of keep grinding up, even though it is a little bit volatile. So 3 small to mid names. You can see this one also about a $7 billion company. 3 small to mid-cap names to watch as the IWM tries to break out. Let's look at some other winners from today, maybe some of the bigger names. AMD reclaiming the 8-day in a big-time way. This was a position we actually added to earlier this morning in Grotection. As it started to show some strength, we saw some volume come in, and you can see the candle there. Very impressive. Nice reclaim after selling off a little bit after earnings, but pretty much exactly what you would want to see here out of AMD. Secondly, Tesla, which has become an absolute behemoth, getting a little bit vertical here. You can tell this move. I mean, we've gone from 900 here to 1200 in a matter of about 6 days. Tesla has a tendency of doing these things. When it moves, it really moves, and so far that has not changed. You see the big volume spike here. Haven't had that kind of volume on Tesla since back in these days, right, on the upside anyway. So Tesla, massive move, one of our biggest positions in our portfolio as well. Some other leading names, Suncor Energy. This is one we added recently, showing really nice follow through, slightly above average volume again today, making a higher high. Very good action from SU. I mentioned oil and gas doing well, reflected here in Suncor. Also, we had SI. We took a little bit of profits on this one today as it got really extended up here in the 190s. Took a little bit of profits on this name, but still a phenomenal, incredible move, as well as a lot of the other Bitcoin / crypto related names showing some strength today. I'll show you a few of those here, I guess kind of as a bonus to those small stocks. Hut is one you need to watch. This is a very small, early stages mining company. It doesn't have much institutional support, which is part of the reason we can't really consider it for Grotection at the moment. But it is a small company that has been in a very strong trend, in a very strong space. So keep your eye on HUT. It's one of the leaders, if not the leader, in the crypto mining space. A couple more here. XBI, biotechs acting like they want to join the party. You can see this is a big time move from XBI to get back above the 50-day moving average. I know it's an ETF, but this is an area we've been watching. I've been watching particularly. I know I've talked about it on the podcast. We're waiting for the biotech to join the risk on party, right? We saw the G5 was strong today. We see ARKK starting to have the resemblance of some positive traction. Hadn't been able to get that in some time. We've seen QQQJ and some of these funds act well, waiting to see if XBI, if biotech can join the party with the rest of the risk on assets. Solar continues to act incredibly strong, won't give anybody really an opportunity, staying extended. Two of the top names here, Enphase, I talked about, I believe on the podcast, really acting as perfectly as a gap up could act. This thing has acted like an absolute monster since the gap up here just a few days ago. And then Sedge is the other name in the space that's acting very similar. Both of these are really, really strong. Earnings coming up for Sedge. Enphase has earnings behind it. And then lastly, another space I've been talking about, lithium continuing to be very strong. LTHM continuing to break out, continuing its move today up another 3%. LAC relatively flat, I think up about 1%. Both of these doing exactly what they should be doing in a leading sector, and two leading stocks here as well. Some laggards for the day, Affirm down about 6% or so, was really down all day long. You can see it's just it has some volatile days. It's a volatile stock right here above the pivot. But I do want to point out one important thing. We want to see if 150 can now become support. So we've seen it function as support here. We undercut it here and got back above. So want to see if 150 can hold. But the other important thing is you see the 21 EMA is now pretty much directly horizontal with this 146.90 pivot. It's just a little bit below it, but it's nice to see that come back up. That gives some additional support to Affirm if it does go back and test this level beyond just the fact that it's a pivot, right? So now you've got a moving average corresponding with that pivot. We like anything that puts a little bit higher odds in our favor. Also, we had NUE and STLD down today along with the other steel stocks. It looks like there was some tariff news regarding steel affecting these stocks. They did pretty much bounce where they should have bounced today in regards to both of these. NUE more so, it looks like. So this is a low risk reward spot, but at the same time, you don't want to be messing around with stuff that's got bad news swirling around it. These also aren't entirely the most healthy charts when there are some better ones out there. So I'd be careful with these, but as long as the lows of today can hold and those moving averages can start to catch up and assimilate in the right order, certainly worth keeping on your radar. Additionally, we had software week today, really driven more so by Google, Netflix, Amazon, more than anything else. You see Google down about 3%, Netflix down, I believe, about 1.5%, and then Amazon down a little over 2%, if I'm not mistaken, or right there close to it. So yeah, down about 2%. So some weakness in some of the big cap names. It looks like some of that money flowing into Mr. Tesla, as we just looked at a moment ago. A few more laggards for the day. CrowdStrike down pretty big on a downgrade. However, they bounced at the 50, kind of where they would need to. Still below the 21. You'd like to see this get through today's high and get back above the 21 pretty quickly here on CrowdStrike. A couple more here. You rejected trying to really get through that 150 area, still staying above the 8-day here. Datadog, a weak one today, although it was extended, still staying above the 8-day as well. And last one for us here, I just wanted to show XLF, the bigger financial fund, right? Not the regional banks or anything like that, only up a 0.1% today, while KRE was up 3%. So a big divergence in XLF and KRE versus each other today. So one massively outperforming the other. We did have, rates tick up a little bit. So all in all, a good day for the market. Some big time relative strength in some smaller names and some growth names, or in some bigger names in the case of Tesla. And the market's kind of digesting the move while we saw some of the indices that had lagged, right? Not lagged, but mid caps and small caps really weren't very extended. Now they pretty much kind of caught up with the S&P and the Qs in one day. So I hope what I presented was valuable to you all, and I will see you on Thursday's video as well as the podcast. So thank you everybody for listening, and have a great week.